This video is brought to you by Project Mechadoge. I'm serious. A new chill and casual RPG where only animals exist, in which you can enjoy the excitement of a hack and slash, as well as a roguelike game with cute characters. Violent cats started to rule the world, and the poor puppies lost their freedom. You have your mission to stand against the cats by arming yourself with mecha. Become stronger by upgrading your mecha and defeat the raging cats. The game is also multiplayer, so you and your friends can fight the good fight. So, if you're ready to help out the cute mecha dogs, then click that link down below to check out Project Mechadoge today. Your many good boys are waiting. Despite being the friendly waffle Nintendo guy, I've played my fair share of Mortal Kombat throughout the years, all the way back since I was a little kid. Definitely too young to be seeing this stuff. Mortal Kombat kicked its way into arcades across America on October 8th, 1992. The game was unlike anything anyone has ever seen, with its use of blood, violence, and fatalities. So much so that the ESRB was born out of it. For the longest time, Mortal Kombat was the forbidden game, the game that kids were absolutely not allowed to play under any circumstances. It clearly didn't work out, considering the franchise is still going strong today. So much so that I'm feeling kinda nostalgic. So have a seat and join me on this bloody journey through every single Mortal Kombat game. I might regret this. So here we are, Mortal Kombat 1, the game that started it all. It's a game that definitely caught your eye if you were a kid walking around in the arcades in the 90s. Most fighting games had a cartoony anime style to it. And by games, I mean Street Fighter. Cartoon violence was pretty normal in the 90s, but then comes along a game that has real-life people inflicting real-life violence on each other. The game's story follows a tournament, where many different realms need to engage in said tournament, where if that realm loses, it gets taken over by some big baddies. What a ripoff. And yup, it's now Earth's turn to fight to survive. I love this game's aesthetic. Every stage looks like something straight out of a kung fu movie, mainly Bruce Lee's Game of Death. The roster of characters is half awesome and half boring. Sure, nowadays they're all iconic and beloved, but back then, characters like Sonya, Johnny Cage, and Kano, it just looked like your local real estate agent or something. Scorpion and Sub-Zero, the yellow and blue ninjas, are probably the most iconic characters that would unofficially become the series' mascots. Raiden, the god of thunder, who is canonically the worst god and protector of humans in any game I've ever played. Seriously, his ending has him destroying Earth and being like, oopsie. And Liu Kang. He's literally just Bruce Lee, even making the I've never been good at fighting games, like ever. As a kid, I would just button mash and hope for the best, all while maybe learning a few button combinations for special moves if they were easy enough. I remember Liu Kang's flying kick was like forward high kick for so many years. It's pretty easy to remember. Now unfortunately, Mortal Kombat isn't very friendly to people who just button mash, especially later on as you'll see. It's straight up impossible to win. Speaking of button mashing, fatalities. I could never pull off a fatality because my dumb ADHD ass could never allow me to memorize more than 3 things at once. The fatalities were so crazy to see, body parts getting ripped off and hearing the people scream. Yeah, 7-year-old me was not ready for this. When I reached Goro, I was not only peeing my pants, but just getting my stuff kicked in over and over again. I think what made this spectacle of violence all the more intriguing for a kid like me was the fact that Mortal Kombat used digitized actors. I'm not gonna pretend like I know the process of how they do it, but yeah, seeing this actual real-life looking person get broken in half was so traumatizing. The game was, I'm sure, a hit in arcades. I was just a little too young when the game was in arcades. So instead, I had to settle for the home versions, which I never had. I had to go over to my friend's house to play the game. So despite this being the first entry in the series, it's definitely the one I've played the least and have the least memories with. As you may know, Mortal Kombat was so controversial that it literally created the ESRB. So when the games were inevitably ported to the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, the blood was removed entirely in the Super Nintendo version, and the blood was disabled with a code on Genesis. I don't know if there was ever a game that made such a powerful debut onto the scene. It came, created a rating system, ripped out spines, and started a legacy. Mortal Kombat unsurprisingly would receive a sequel in 1993. This time, taking everything the first game did and turned it up to 11. More characters, more blood, more fatalities, and more bullshit! Excuse my French. Mortal Kombat 2 is the game that's more recognizable to me. When I think of the first Mortal Kombat game, my brain always thinks of this game first before I need to correct myself. After Liu Kang, my favorite character of all time, defeated Shang Tsung, Shao Kahn, the Emperor and truly bigger baddie, decides, nah, and challenges our heroes to another tournament, this time in the dark and creepy Outworld. Outworld has so many iconic stages. The acid pit, the castles, the gothic landscapes. It's all so iconic and gorgeous in a haunting way. The gameplay is mostly unchanged here. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. However, the difficulty with this game is unreal. Enemies go from 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye. Enemies literally will read your controller inputs and react accordingly. And you might think I'm exaggerating, but no, the enemies literally react to your inputs, making for one of the most unfair experiences in any game you'll ever play. There are so many videos you can find on YouTube that just breaks down the CPU's bullshit and cheesing the hell out of you. But whatever, let's ignore that. The character roster is more diverse and actually interesting in my eyes. 2 new ninja girls in Katana and Melina, the ugly blade-handed Baraka that literally gave me nightmares as a kid, the badass Jax, Kung Lao with his blade hat, Reptile, a green ninja who was a secret character in the first game, and a younger version of the final boss of the last game, Shang Tsung. The only characters that didn't make a return were Sonya and Kano, simply because they were the least played characters in the first game. Fatalities once again are the main course of Mortal Kombat, and they're even more crazy. As well as the debuting friendships.
Shang Tsung wins. Friendship. Friendship?
Yeah, they were just doing whatever they wanted. The only way I ever saw these fatalities were from my friend back in the day. He was awesome at Mortal Kombat, and was the only reason I was able to see the endgame characters like Kintaro and Shao Kahn, as well as the fatalities and secret characters. Seriously, without him, I probably wouldn't even care about this franchise. So everyone, please leave a thank you to my childhood friend Kyle in the comments. Once again, yes, an awesome game I was so terrible at, especially with the cheating AI. I would be lucky to beat the first opponent in the game. The first opponent! They may as well have been a final boss to me. Up yours. Looking back at all early Mortal Kombat, I was just a dumb little kid at the time. I could maybe remember 2 button combinations for characters, so yeah, my gameplay still consisted of button mashing and hoping for the best. When I played with Kyle, I'd sometimes get lucky. For the most part though, he was kicking my ass, but I never really cared about that. I had such a strong fascination for the glorious violence I was witnessing as a second grader. Once again, stuff I definitely shouldn't have been seeing, and ever since MK2, I was hooked. So much so, my obsession would truly begin in the next game in the series. Mortal Kombat 3, the game that was apparently the best thing ever, being released like 10 different times. You had Mortal Kombat 3, Mortal Kombat Ultimate 3, Mortal Kombat Trilogy, Mortal Kombat 3 times 3 divided by 3, which equals out to 3, that one's a mouthful. I don't know why this game was released so many different times. I guess it was because certain characters were missing in each entry. The first release of MK3 didn't have Johnny Cage because he canonically died in the beginning story of the game. What? Anyway, the story of MK3 is that Shao Kahn, after losing the second tournament in a row, decides to just invade Earth anyway because he's a sore loser. Because of this, the game takes place in the corrupted areas on Earth, which is kinda hit or miss. Like, there are at least 5 stages that come to mind that just take place on the city streets. It doesn't feel too epic to battle a ninja in a drainage ditch, but that's just me. Mortal Kombat Trilogy was my first ever exposure to the series. As I mentioned earlier, my friend Kyle had like all the games. I remember going to his house and watching him start punching the crap out of this giant minotaur monster. He was playing as this four-armed monster girl with loads of blood shooting out of each other, and I was instantly hooked. Like I said, with these first 3 MK games, I was awful at them. They were so hard, I could never beat a single enemy on the easiest difficulty. And every time Kyle pulled off a fatality, I would cover my face with my hands, while slightly opening them a little bit to pique my sick curiosity. So, if I wasn't good at these games, why did I fall in love with them so much? Again, I was just simply fascinated by it. I've never seen anything like this at the time. The horrifying landscapes, the unsettling music, the chaotic violence was unlike anything I've ever played. This was not Mario 64. I think we as humans are so drawn to things that frighten us, and Mortal Kombat Trilogy was my first true exposure to that. The fatalities are once again so juicy and scary. I guess this game's fatalities scare me even more considering it has some childhood scarring connected to them. The animalities also make their debut as finishers.
Johnny Cage wins. Animality.
They are so stupid, I love them. What's also stupid is the final boss battle with Shao Kahn. I don't think it's unfair to call this the most unfair and difficult boss battle in Mortal Kombat history. Oh, believe me, all MK games have that bullshit final boss feel to them, but something about Mortal Kombat 3 with Shao Kahn just spamming these moves at you that seems completely unfair has made anyone who's made it this far probably go clinically insane. If you do manage to beat him, as always, Liu Kang's ending is the one that's canon, but it's still really cool seeing all the different possible outcomes if any other character won the tournament. These cutscenes are also used to further build the lore and world of Mortal Kombat. All in all, the original Mortal Kombat trilogy of arcade games, and trilogy as in the first 3 games, cemented themselves as instant classics that would go down in history. All of them were released to critical praise by fans and created such a cult following. Let's see if they would be able to keep up with that momentum.
Thousands of years ago, in a battle with the fallen elder god known as Shinnok, I was responsible for the death of an entire civilization.
Oh my good god, everything went wrong. Mortal Kombat 4 would be the final MK game to be released in the arcades on October 15th, 1997. It was released to mixed reviews, most of which leaning towards the negative side. The biggest complaint was that, look at this, gone were the photorealistic characters that made the violence in past games so shocking. Now we just have polygon monsters on scale with Donkey Kong from the original Smash Bros. There wasn't anything violent or scary with this new entry. These dopey looking graphics just made things more comedic. Oh, don't worry, we'll get there. So, after Liu Kang and friends defeated Shao Kahn in the last game, a new threat emerged in the form of Shinnok and Quan Chi. And with them came a whole new roster of characters that, I'll be honest, nobody really cares about. I mean seriously, find me the person whose favorite Mortal Kombat character is Reiko. It's impossible, they don't exist. The gameplay though is honestly really solid. It's probably one of my favorites in the series as a whole if we're being honest, from a gameplay perspective.
Wins.
Gone are the stupid combo attacks that no one could pull off. Now it's back to high and low punch as well as high and low kick. Like, you can't go wrong with Raiden still speaking gibberish. Yeah, that's classic. As well as Johnny Cage speaking gibberish, apparently. And Sub-Zero. Oh, come on! You see what I mean? This game is just too funny. Every character has their own set of gibberish talk. Why? It only adds laughs to the experience, which I guarantee you, the game already handles perfectly fine on its own.
I mean, let's get real here, huh? When am I gonna get some real competition? Come on, don't get silent now. Where are all the cheers?
Yes, probably the most famous thing to come out of Mortal Kombat 4 are the absolutely over-the-top, absurd, and hilarious ending cutscenes.
Never.
These are infamous on the internet for their garbage voice acting, and I'm not trying to crap on them or anything. Like, I'm no voice actor myself, but come on!
Going somewhere, Jarek? Jax, I thought you were going to... Thought I was what, dead? Like my partner you just tossed off the cliff? I'm sorry, Jax. You have to uphold the law. You have to arrest me. Wait, this is brutality. You can't do it. Wrong, Jarek. This is not a brutality. This is a fatality.
You're telling me a 13-year-old kid who's half asleep couldn't do better than that? To be fair, I guess if you want people to remember your game, this is one way to do it.
You have defeated my physical form, but my soul is eternal. You will pay for the massacre of my clan and family.
Well done, Sub-Zero. By killing him, you saved us, but shot both you and Scorpion were pawns for Shinnok. Scorpion!
Again, the overall game as a whole is fine, but when it comes to Mortal Kombat, you don't want to be just fine. You want to stand out from the sea of games out there, and in a good way. The familiar lack of characters like Kano, Shang Tsung, Kitana, Mileena, Baraka, heck, I'll even take Shiva, and replacing them with Kai, Tanya, Jarek, and other Raiden just didn't leave an impression. MK4 would eventually have a re-release on the PS1 under the name Mortal Kombat Gold. This would add in some extra characters and stages, but the damage was already done. Unfortunately, silly is the first thing that comes to mind when people hear this game. When someone dies from a fatality, it's kinda funny. This was the first Mortal Kombat game that I owned personally and didn't have to go over to Kyle's house to play. Because of that, I was able to somewhat get decent at it, despite all the negative things it has going for it. I'll still find it to be a joy, maybe a guilty pleasure of sorts. Unfortunately though, the Mortal Kombat train wreck wouldn't stop here.
Grandmaster, in honor of the Lin Kuei, I bring you this sacred map of elements.
Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero. Ugh. This was Mortal Kombat's attempt to step out of their comfort zone and try something new, and I commend them for that. To take a risk and expand your creative horizons. That's me smacking you, telling you to never try that again for at least another 8 years. In this game, you take control of Sub-Zero and need to platform your way to victory. Yes, the game is a side-scrolling platformer beat-em-up. They tried to keep some familiarity with the combat. As you can see, it's trying to mimic the fighting style. Even the controls are exactly the same as MK3. But it just doesn't work, especially in a platforming sense. The control is ass, but what were they thinking? James Rolfe was really onto something with that. Because seriously, pressing up on the D-pad as your jump button is already ridiculous enough. But trying to do precise platforming with it only ends in death every time. The control during combat is fine, but when you need to do anything else, good luck. And oh, don't worry, the cheesy cutscenes with laughable acting is back. This time with actual live-action actors.
I never heard of an elder god named Shinnok, or of a place called the Netherrealm.
You better start believing in both, because you're going to the Netherrealm.
This game sucks, plain and simple. Like, why the hell does this trash exist? A side-scrolling beat-em-up with Mortal Kombat controls? We already had that! It's called Batman Forever on the Super Nintendo. A game I honestly liked when I was younger. And to be fair, is a million times better than this shit. With a name like Mortal Kombat Mythologies, the word mythologies implies that this was meant to be a series, playing as different characters and going through their individual stories. Sounds good in concept, but with this execution...
His soul is still contained inside his body.
A mortal can't exist here with his soul intact.
It's no surprise that the series died with this single entry. However, it would have a spiritual successor of sorts. Mortal Kombat Special Forces. God damn it with this! So, this game was released on the PS1 in the year 2000. Here we take control of Jax and go through his story. You see what I mean? It's not called Mythologies, but has the same concept of what they were going for. The only difference is that now, instead of a 2D garbage game, we now have to deal with 3D garbage! This game is so ugly in every sense of the word. It's not pretty to look at, and the controls don't feel satisfying. At least with Sub-Zero Mythologies, the combat was attempting to mirror a good game. With Special Forces though, this combat is built from the ground up, and there's no polish to it. When you encounter a bad guy, the game locks you in this battle mode, but you can just button mash like crazy until you inevitably win. Now, you'd think a company who've made pretty much only fighting games for the past decade, that they'd know how to make combat of any kind fun. Wrong. This game is so slow, which is my main gripe with it. If it was at least fast-paced garbage where I could button mash, I might be able to forgive it. It'd make the pain a lot quicker. But slowly walking around mainly empty corridors to slowly button mash an enemy to death, I can't say I'm a fan of that. And the entire game takes place in this dingy, underground-looking area. I'm serious, every stage has this stale, lifeless look to it. It's like every level is a sewer. It gets beyond boring after a while. I personally feel like this game could have had potential if they just went all out with a different style. Like, maybe make the game a third-person shooter or something. It's different, and it couldn't possibly be worse than what we got. So, Mortal Kombat Jax Mythologies, or whatever the hell this is called, gets a big ol' thumbs down. Man, can we talk about a good game yet? Nope. Alright, this next segment's gonna be pretty short. Mortal Kombat on Game Boy. I get that the Game Boy has extreme limitations and that ports are never going to live up to the home console versions, but I don't care. These games suck. Like, I honestly would have preferred nothing over this. Because even as a stupid kid, the only feeling you get after playing a Game Boy port of anything is, man, I really want to play the real Mortal Kombat 2 on my Super Nintendo now. This isn't strictly a Mortal Kombat thing, but yeah, I figured I'd have to mention the Game Boy ports of Mortal Kombat 1 through 4, so there you go. And now, we reach this point. After 5 years of subpar Mortal Kombat games, the series would make a powerful comeback to the scene. Deadly Alliance immediately showed that the series was done messing around, and nothing exemplifies that better than the opening cinematic.
Mortal Kombat has always been, and always will be. For millennia, the forces of good and evil have been locked in eternal battle over the control of Earthrealm.
Yeah, all is well in the world. Earthrealm has defeated Outworld, and oh look, my favorite character Liu Kang, the character I've loved since day one and inspired me to actually take up martial arts. Liu Kang is...
Liu Kang is dead.
Liu Kang is what?
Liu Kang is dead.
Oh my god. This game had the balls to kill off its main character. This genuinely made me upset when I was younger, and honestly turned me off from the game for a few years. So, the story of this game is that Shang Tsung and Quan Chi have teamed up, forming a
Deadly Alliance.
And Earthrealm needs to band together with new heroes, new villains, and engage in Mortal Kombat! So, in a sense, Deadly Alliance acted as a soft reboot to the series. Obviously there's no Liu Kang, but we do have a new badass ninja suit for Scorpion, which would be his default for a few years, Old Man Sub-Zero that nobody liked, and new beloved characters like Li Mei, Mavado, Su Hao, and Girl Sub-Zero. Just like with MK4, I can appreciate the attempt at trying to expand the universe and add in new characters, but so many of these fighters are so generic and boring. Dramon's pretty cool from a complete nightmare perspective. Bo Raicho is a pretty divisive entry. He's a fat drunk who literally pukes and farts as attacks. I kinda love it. Oh yeah, he also apparently trained Liu Kang. Yeah, why not? The only character that was universally loved was Kenshi. He's a blind martial artist with psychic ninja abilities. which is pretty badass. He's one of the few of this new era that would actually make appearances in future games. But how's the gameplay? I mean, that's what matters most. And I'm proud to announce that this game, it kicks ass. For the first time ever, Mortal Kombat now takes place in a fully functional 3D plane. MK4 kind of had it, but Deadly Alliance goes in full force with it. Pressing up and down on the D-pad will move the characters around the stage, and you can actually use this to dodge attacks. It's more than just a simple camera effect to show off the 3D power of the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox. Every character now has 2 fighting styles and a weapon, so every character controls very differently from one another. It's fun trying to figure out which character's fighting styles you like the best. Then we have the fatalities, which were... yeah, definitely kinda lacking in the cool department. I don't know, they sometimes once again just seemed a little goofy. The game looked incredible, especially back in the early 2000s. The characters from back in the day were given more modern and updated looks. Johnny Cage looks extra douchey, which is a compliment here. Sonya is, well, she made teenage me feel something for the first time. But Jax with his beret and sunglasses, because he's a war army guy, it's a little over the top, even for Mortal Kombat. The stages are also really pretty, especially since you're able to utilize them in 3D, getting the full scope of the areas and really allowing yourself to be immersed. But overall though, Deadly Alliance was such a nice welcome back to the series' roots. Pure fast-paced action with glorious violence. Fun for the whole family, sure, let your second grade kids see this stuff. I did it and look at me, I'm totally fine! The multiple fighting styles really made finding your character super fun. Because if you really wanted to master a character, you kinda had to master them 3 different times, which is kinda crazy to think about. There's a lot of replay value here, especially with the addition of the Crypt, random unlockables that range anywhere from artwork, music, costumes, and this.
This week on Cooking with Scorpion, learn about chopping, tenderizing, chopping, cake decorating, and chopping.
This is a real video you could unlock in a Mortal Kombat game, and everything about it is perfect. This new 3D trilogy of Mortal Kombat games that would be released really were some of the greatest fighting games in my opinion. And while Deadly Alliance is great, things would only get better.
Now Onaga has what he needs to shape the realms as he sees fit. I was the fool who brought him this power. Only I can destroy this threat, born of deception.
2 years later in 2004, the world would see Mortal Kombat Deception, a sequel to Deadly Alliance and my personal favorite of the 3D Mortal Kombat era games. The story, if you care, has the Deadly Alliance kill off every other good guy you know and love. Cool. They then defeat Raiden in a fight and awaken the Dragon King Onaga, where everyone then realizes, oh shit, maybe we shouldn't have done that, and need to work together. That's basically it. So, since most of our beloved characters from the last game are, dead, we once again have a fresh new roster with beloved characters like Ashra, Dairo, Darius, Kira, what the fuck is with all this generic nonsense? And Cobra, who I unironically love and play as every time I boot up the game. I don't know why, he's literally just a shameless shitty Street Fighter ripoff, but I can't help but love it. Like, me loving him went from a joke to now he's my main who I play best with. I hate me. From a gameplay perspective, not much has changed. We still have 3 different fighting styles and a 3D environment you can play with. I really love this new 3D style of Mortal Kombat, and I think a lot of people did too, so why mess with it? So yeah, from a gameplay standpoint, the games are completely identical. I mean, some of you probably don't even know if I'm showing you Deadly Alliance or Deception footage right now. Although, Deception did add in a little something to spice up the fights. Stage fatalities. On some maps, you'll notice a little red line. If you manage to hit your opponent out of that line, it'll result in an instant kill known as a stage fatality. These are honestly so fun, because a match could literally end in a matter of seconds if you know what you're doing. And when you're playing with a friend and you're both panicking trying to get knocked into the death zone, it's priceless. Another thing I never noticed was that apparently a lot of these stages in this game are remade from MK1 and 2. For no reason really, but hey, I appreciate you doing it. Mortal Kombat Deception also brings back a beloved feature from MK4. Garbage-ass voice acting and cutscenes.
Hi, you must be Shujinko, the one Master Bo Raicho mentioned. I've seen you around before. You and your friends are always pretending to be famous warriors in that park over there.
Conquest mode follows a new character named Shujinko. He is the most bland, nothing, copy and paste main protagonist in a fighting game ever. He's tasked with saving the world from Onaga or something. I don't know, I really don't be paying attention sometimes. The mode kinda plays more like an RPG, where you walk around the village and overworld, talk to NPCs, do side quests, and when you get into an encounter, the game turns into the Mortal Kombat we all know and love for 2004. These stupid-ass encounters, again, somehow even have fucking worse voice acting than Mortal Kombat 4!
You emerged from the portal to the gods. How can this be?
I am Shujinko, champion of the Elder Gods.
They're the only things worth playing through Conquest mode for. There is one encounter that I do really like. So, in Mortal Kombat 4, remember Reiko, the character that nobody likes? Well, his ending on the N64 version was really fucking lame. He walks into a portal and disappears. However, in every other release of the game, after walking in that teleporter, he goes to Shao Kahn's throne and puts on his helmet. I remember after seeing that, I was like, wait, what? What does that mean? Is Reiko Shao Kahn unmasked? Is he the new leader after Shao Kahn died in Mortal Kombat 3? Well, all these years later, in this Conquest mode, we would get our answer.
I have discovered that Reiko, formerly my most trusted general, has been entering my private chamber to wear my helmet.
His dumbass was just sneaking in and wearing it like a 4-year-old playing pretend. I love that.
Oh, Shao Kahn knows about that? Tell him I will no longer enter his chamber or wear his helmet. But just between us, his helmet will belong to me in due time.
The plot itself is your generic traveling through multiple worlds to gather multiple powerful items together and use them to defeat the powerful evil. I don't know, man, who honestly cares? Shujinko sucks. Now, spoilers, if you care, I believe the story ends with Shujinko fucking failing his mission, and the Conquest mode was like some sort of prequel to the opening cutscenes, where Shujinko gave Onaga the power to be able to stop Raiden and the Deadly Alliance? Wow, good job, glad to have you, bro. Something about this story mode though is just so comforting. I guess that's the best word I could use. Like, the team tried to make something here. It's so clunky and awkward that you can't help but smile the entire way through. There's no way you'll play this mode and not end up loving it by the end. And the extra content doesn't end there, because we also have chess combat and puzzle combat. 2 entire minigames that honestly also kick a lot of ass. Chess combat is just that. It's chess. If you know how to play chess, then you'll love this. I personally, though, spent most of my time playing puzzle combat. It's a puzzle game similar to Tetris. Or I guess a more appropriate comparison would be to Puzzle Fighter. You even get to select a chibi version of the MK characters, and it's just so adorable. There would legit be times I would turn on Mortal Kombat Deception just to play Puzzle Combat. Out of the 3 games that would be released during this time and followed the storyline of Deadly Alliance, Deception, and Armageddon, which we'll get to obviously, I always preferred Deception. And I don't really know why. Something about it just felt so charming. Maybe just like most games that are our favorites, I played it at a certain time in my life where this story mode just tickled me in all the right ways.
What is the password?
Ice Dragon.
Excellent.
Overall, Mortal Kombat Deception knocked it out of the park. A perfect sequel in every way. This early to mid-2000s Mortal Kombat was killing it! Pun intended. And what? Do you honestly think things can get even better than this? Well, it absolutely can. Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks was the series' first and sadly only entry to stray away from the traditional fighting game formula and make it amazing. The game takes place in somewhat of an alternate timeline. The events of this game take place during a combination of the stories of Mortal Kombat 1 and 2. Here, you take control of either Liu Kang or Kung Lao, you know, the Shaolin Monks. As I mentioned earlier, the game is no longer a fighting game, but instead, an action-adventure arcade beat-em-up. And it's godly. Seriously, the gameplay is so fast-paced with its combos, special moves, and fatalities. It's everything you could hope for when you hear the words Mortal Kombat beat-em-up. You can do some crazy kung fu, fling your opponents in the air, and continue to beat the crap out of them. Now, you might think that the gameplay would get repetitive, but no. You're constantly unlocking new abilities and combos to play around with, as well as able to kill enemies with the environment. It's also incredibly charming to be able to travel and explore all these areas that we've been playing throughout the years. Shaolin Monk's greatest strength, though, is its co-op. Meaning, if you have a friend, you can both just kung fu the hell out of everything, which I think is the best way to experience this game. With a friend, so you can say things like, "Damn, you seeing this?" It's amazing how seamless this series can transition into a genre like this. It's such a massive step up from the other spin-offs in the series, and it's not even close. This format of the game really gives you that extra bit of insight into the Mortal Kombat world. Being able to run around the living forest really fleshes out the world, and feels like you are in Mortal Kombat, which is a horrifying thought. The boss battles are also really unique. They add a bit more depth and creativity, a fun break from constantly beating the bejesus out of grunts. And that final boss, I could never beat Shao Kahn, even in co-op with a friend. This final round gauntlet where you need to fight Shang Tsung, Kintaro, and Shao Kahn on just a single life really puts everything you have to the test. And brings back that good old classic Mortal Kombat bullshit! Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks really feels like a passion project. A game that didn't need to exist unless you really wanted it to. Every aspect of the game is fun. Some people aren't into this kind of beat-em-up style, saying it's too easy, but, you know, shut up. Ed Boon has stated that there was supposed to be a sequel called Mortal Kombat Fire and Ice, following Scorpion and Sub-Zero. That would have been awesome! There was even a prototype out there, but it was eventually just cancelled and dropped altogether. I guess to make room for, you know, Mortal Kombat vs. DC. Well, at least we still have Shaolin Monks, one of the best games in this genre. It's got platforming, action, fan service, violence. What more could a kid ask for? But now, we're here. The 7th main entry in the Mortal Kombat series. The game that was initially supposed to end the Mortal Kombat series as a whole. Mortal Kombat Armageddon.
There have been many powerful warriors throughout the millennia, but ages of mortal combat have begun to tear at the fabric of the realms. The critical point has finally been reached.
Dude. Holy shit, this intro honestly may be the highlight of the entire game. It's so great. Every character from Mortal Kombat's past is here, duking it out on either the good or evil side. Total chaos has broken loose. The violence comes to a temporary halt when a pyramid appears from the center, granting whoever makes it to the top godlike power. Damn! Everyone of course then forgets their good and evil alliances, and instead becomes everyone for themselves. With the Deadly Alliance even breaking up with Shang Tsung betraying Quan Chi, and
old hatreds will be revived.
Liu Kang returns as a fucking vengeful zombie. This really hyped me up when I saw this all those years ago. I think I'm gonna say it. This intro is honestly the best opening to any video game in the history of video games. And I mean every word of that. Now, onto the game finally. We start off by selecting our Jesus! Yeah, it turns out that every character in Mortal Kombat's past didn't just make an appearance in the opening, oh no, but is a fully playable character right from the get-go. Even boss characters like Shao Kahn and Onaga. This game did not fuck around. Even the fabled Reiko fans can rejoice with his dumbass being here. The gameplay itself is once again much of the same from Deadly Alliance and Deception. Same 3D gameplay, same multiple fighting styles, and even the instant stage fatalities make a return. Again, at the time, it was a winning formula not worth playing around with. Although I could definitely see how people could start to feel the fatigue. The final boss in the arcade ladder is of course Blaze. He's fairly challenging, but definitely one of the easier final bosses. When you defeat him, you get the character's ending, but it's told in a very lazy way. Your character just does one of like 5 different preset martial arts dances, I believe they're called katas, and a narrator tells the player what happened.
Liu Kang reluctantly defeated his mentor in an epic clash.
In Deadly Alliance and Deception, the characters' endings were told through both narration and illustration. It felt like a real reward. Especially with the massive stakes Armageddon laid out, I feel like these endings should have been given more grandeur. Underwhelming can sometimes be an accurate word to describe this game. Even the fatalities have taken a step back. Instead of each character having a set button combination, we now have Create a Fatality, which sounds cool on paper, but ultimately just results in you button mashing until you kill off your opponent the same exact way. Every character has this limited set of fatalities. I guess it would have been a lot of work to give 62 different characters multiple fatalities, but, you know, too bad! A pretty big addition to the series was also Create a Fighter mode, where you could create a fighter. It's a pretty deep system too. Tons of aesthetic freedom and customization to make your combatant as silly or as badass as you want. I played around with this feature a little bit, but in a game with 62 characters I've grown so fond of over the years, it personally took a backseat for me. Then of course we have the classic, the best undefeated minigame to ever be released. Motor Kombat!
Scorpion.
It is a goddamn Mario Kart ripoff game, complete once again with chibi characters, silly vehicles, and death. This is amazing. It's a really solid kart racer too. The team really didn't half-ass these minigames like they definitely could've, so kudos to all of you. Conquest mode of course makes a return. It's a story mode following 2 characters, Taven and Dagon, 2 more very generic nothing characters. The mode this time around though goes full on Shaolin Monks style, being an action-adventure platforming beat-em-up hybrid. Although, it's much worse. It's not terrible, don't get me wrong. It's just Diet Shaolin Monks. But still a really fun time. It has both 3D action segments as well as traditional Mortal Kombat fights. There's a lot of creativity here, good times all around. Armageddon is always a fun time when I boot it up. Mainly because of this massive roster. There are so many characters to master if you really care to. I don't know, maybe I'm just immediately in a good mood because I always watch that opening cutscene every time I start up the game. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Deception was my favorite of the 3 released in this modern trilogy. The gameplay just felt more fleshed out and fun, while Armageddon just felt like a copy and paste from a gameplay perspective after the 3rd time around. There were some handheld ports of these 3D games. Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition was released on the Game Boy Advanced. It's an underpowered port of Deadly Alliance, but to its credit, it does try to replicate that 3D gameplay. It's really amazing to see actually. I had no idea the GBA was powerful enough to do this. I mean yeah, it looks pixely as all hell, but still, they made a 3D fighting game on the GBA. Then we have Mortal Kombat Unchained. It's Mortal Kombat Deception on your PSP. What's with these jank-ass bootleg names? Tournament Edition? Unchained? With the PSP being more powerful than the GBA, the game actually manages to look and play like Deception, which is cool. After the massive title that was Mortal Kombat Armageddon, a game that essentially ended the world, all alliances, and had 62 playable characters, where could the series possibly go next? Well, what did happen next, I don't think anyone saw coming. There have been a lot of ambitious crossovers throughout the years. Freddy vs. Jason, Godzilla vs. King Kong, but one of the most seemingly random crossovers came in the form of 2008's newest Mortal Kombat entry, Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. What the hell? If there were ever two things that seemingly didn't mix well, it would be Mortal Kombat, the violent fighting game where the aim of the game is to brutally kill and dismember your opponent as violently as possible, going against the comic book team of superheroes whose goal it is to literally not kill anyone. How could this game possibly work? Are we really going to see Batman rip someone's head clean off? Or worse, will the game just remove fatalities and violence entirely? Well, both yes and no. The game came to be after Midway struck a deal with DC Comics. Prior to this deal, however, apparently Mortal Kombat 8 was in the works, set to be a really dark and gritty take on the series, but was inevitably dropped for MK vs. DC. The main attraction to this game is the story mode. I mean, obviously, we want to see how these two universes are colliding and how the characters will interact with each other. Will Raiden and Superman come to blows in a universe-destroying fight? It sounds super exciting. This game also started the story mode style that future Mortal Kombat games, as well as the Injustice series, would use in their own story modes, where you'll start a chapter playing as a certain character. You'll get a really solid looking cutscene that will inevitably lead into a fight. I'm honestly a fan of this style. It transitions pretty clean from fight to cutscene. The gameplay, however, isn't anything to really write home about. It's less fast-paced than the previous entries in the series, but not as fine-tuned as MK9 would prove to be a few years later, which is what it looks like the game was trying to be, while still keeping that 3D combat. But yeah, fatalities. They are awful. The Mortal Kombat crew still get to keep their fatalities. However, they've been insanely toned down and boring. These look like fatalities they would do in a Mortal Kombat Saturday morning cartoon. But I get it. I'm sure DC didn't want Scorpion ripping off the Green Lantern's leg and beating him to death with it or whatever. Then we have the DC side of the spectrum, where again, we can't have these beloved heroes brutally murdering someone, so instead they're given heroic brutalities, where our heroes just kind of beat up the opponent. There's one where Batman throws a batarang at his opponent, and then bats swarm them, and that's it. Like, I'd much rather have Batman punch the bejesus out of someone like he did in the new movie. That's just how I feel about this game as a whole. Just so unnecessary and sanitized. Like it's a rated E for everyone Mortal Kombat. It's apparently rated T, but I feel like even that was being harsh. But all of that doesn't matter. Because while we had to deal with this game to whet our Mortal Kombat appetite, Midway, the company responsible for all these Mortal Kombat games, would go under. Bankrupt, ceasing to exist, and the rights would be sold to Warner Brothers, who would then create NetherRealm Studios. That's an entirely new studio now in charge of this absolute giant in the fighting game industry. So you bet their first game would absolutely need to kick serious ass. Like, it would need to be the best Mortal Kombat probably ever. That's a lot to live up to, and in my opinion, they did it. Simply titled Mortal Kombat, was released on April 19th, 2011. We start off exactly where Armageddon left us, the aftermath of the giant war involving every Mortal Kombat character, now dead and dismembered. It's kinda sad to see. Like damn, I never thought I'd actually see the consequences of these fights. I just wanted the cool spectacle. everyone is dead except for Shao Kahn and Raiden. Which doesn't make sense considering Shao Kahn was literally abducted and taken away by Onaga. But whatever, we're not here to think. It looks like it's game over for Raiden, but right before he dies, he uses that last bit of energy to transport all of his knowledge. To who though? We then get a "That's so Raiden" moment, where another Raiden from another dimension receives this information. Yep, MK 2011 essentially acts as a soft reboot of the series, while still kind of following its entire series past in continuity. We start off at the same time of Mortal Kombat 1. Liu Kang and Raiden are taking part in the tournament hosted by Shang Tsung, where they'll eventually befriend Johnny Cage and Sonya. The only difference now, though, is that Raiden now has information from the future on how these games and events will inevitably turn out, and will try to alter the character's original destinies in order to avoid Armageddon. It's such a fun move. Raiden is now essentially us, the player. We know what'll happen after we defeat Shang Tsung. We know that Shao Kahn is a sore loser, and we, along with Raiden, want these events to turn out differently and for the best, so everyone can get a happy ending. The story mode, as I mentioned earlier, is laid out exactly like MK vs DC, where you'll control a character for a chapter and follow their story before swapping to someone else. Along the way, Raiden will get vague glimpses of the future, but he's not entirely clear on what they mean, so he ends up making impulse decisions that do play out differently from the original timeline. But not necessarily for the better. For example, there's a part where Smoke is going to get abducted by the Cyber Initiative from the Lin Kuei that'll turn him into a robot. Raiden does stop this, but in turn, this ends up getting Sub-Zero captured later and eventually transforming into Cyber Sub-Zero. A cool new badass character, sure, but again, not the best of outcomes. Raiden also thought that with Liu Kang defeating Shang Tsung, the realms would be safe. Although, after Shao Kahn drags the fighters into a new tournament, Raiden loses faith in Liu Kang and instead assumes Kung Lao is the chosen one, and that he will be Earth's savior. Which eventually leads to Kung Lao being arrogant, and after seemingly defeating Shao Kahn fucking kills Kung Lao by snapping his neck. Kung Lao is dead. Like, it's so depressing yet incredibly engaging to see. It seems like no matter what Raiden does, Earthrealm is doomed one way or another. Although, Raiden does get a quick vision of Johnny Cage dying by Motaro, like what apparently happens in MK3, and quickly saves his ass. Okay, cool. One good thing so far on this list of terrible things has happened with these visions. I know I've been talking about the story mode a lot, but NetherRealm really did make this such an engaging feature for the fans. So many little things that only someone who's invested themselves in this world would truly appreciate. And even first-time players can still really get invested. The story also becomes a massive focal point from here on out in the series, so I'm trying to cover the important stuff. So, okay, let's jump to the end. Everyone gets sick of Raiden's shit, considering all his visions have just made things seemingly worse. You kinda feel bad for him, because we the player know how bad things eventually do become. It doesn't help though that there's a part where Sindel shows up and kills all of the characters. By herself. Like what? This bitch solos all of our heroes? The only two who survive are, of course, Sonya and Johnny Cage, go figure. When Liu Kang and Raiden see this, Liu Kang loses his mind and feels like he needs to stop the crazy Thunder God, which accidentally leads him to fucking dying again! Come on, man, my favorite character, I can't have anything nice!
Liu Kang is dead.
So yeah, cool. So now it's up to Raiden to defeat Shao Kahn, which of course he eventually does. And for now, I guess apparently all is right in the world and heading towards a happier ending. I forgot to mention Raiden has this Kamidogu that either shatters when he's made a bad decision or fixes itself up when he's made a good one. So yeah, it's all fixed up now after beating Shao Kahn. The game ends on a cliffhanger when Shinnok and Quan Chi make an appearance, which is again the same setup that leads into the events of Mortal Kombat 4. So yeah, holy shit, that was the story of Mortal Kombat 9. I spent the past however many minutes telling you how brilliant it was, and if that was just the game, I would have called it a success. But yeah, we have this whole ass fighting game here that I haven't even really talked about. My bad. The game now reverts back to its roots being a 2D fighting game. I remember initially being a little disappointed in that, because I dedicated so many hours to the 3D trilogy back in the day, but MK9 is so refined and fleshed out that I quickly got over it. It's easily the best feeling 2D Mortal Kombat game up to this point. It's so much easier to learn combos with characters in my opinion. All of the characters have some sick new redesigns to fit in with this modern generation. Scorpion in particular always gets these badass looking suits. All of the women were also given very revealing outfits accompanying their massive boobies. I mean, look, I'm clearly not gonna complain, I'm just saying, like, goddamn, every female character was gonna make you act up back in the day. I remember when this game came out, I was like 16 or whatever, and the fact that even Shiva was looking pretty fine, I knew I was in trouble. A new staple in the series also made their debut here, the always satisfying and always brutal X-ray moves. Throughout the fight, you would build up this meter down here. When it's full, you could hit both shoulder buttons and it would trigger an attack where, if landed, the character would then do a series of bone-crushing slow-motion attacks that sometimes look even more brutal than the fatalities. Speaking of which, the fatalities are even more brutal and disgusting than ever. I don't even know if I could show them. Simply because graphics now are more realistic. Being another reboot in the series means that the roster of characters was also toned down, but I don't really mind that at all. I mean, let's be real, how many times was Kira even chosen in Armageddon? Probably like 3 times. Ever. The roster pretty much consists of everyone from MK 1 through 3, plus Quan Chi and Cyber Sub-Zero, including DLC with fan favorites like Kenshi and Rain, Scarlet, who was a background character and has a ton of lore directly never explained, and Freddy Krueger, because why not? He was definitely a pretty random choice for DLC at first, but ultimately works and fits in well in the bloody MK universe. He would kickstart the tradition of iconic guest characters as Mortal Kombat DLC. I remember back in the day being so obsessed with this story that it kinda reignited my love for Mortal Kombat. I never really played MK vs DC, so 2006 or 2007 was the last time I was really into the series. I guess MK 2011 is a fairly divisive game in the series. I personally can't really see why. Like, sure, the story isn't super fluid and has its faults, but I thought it was really interesting with the acknowledgement of the old games and timeline while starting a new one. As well as the gameplay being a solid comeback to the 2D genre. I loved MK 2011, so much so that I completely skipped its sequel back in the day. Four years later, on April 14th, 2015, Mortal Kombat X would hit the scene. Released on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And that, right there, was the sole reason I never played this game back in 2015. These things were like $500 at the time. I didn't have that kind of money. I was too busy trying to start my YouTube channel. Hell, one of my more popular videos was actually uploaded a month before MKX was released. So yeah, this one I never sadly got to play a lot. I obviously did a few years later and when I went over to my friend's house, and I really wasn't missing much. Yeah, if I'm being honest, I think that this game is so whatever. The most 5 out of 10, nothing to say, lazy Mortal Kombat game probably ever. The gameplay is always solid. They perfected the 2D gameplay from the previous entry. It's more fast-paced and satisfying to pull off combos. I'm not a fan of the fighting styles thing and all these extra bonuses and stuff you can equip before a fight. Like, goddamn, just give me a character and the moveset and stick with it. Apart from that though, the gameplay is very good, but fumbles at every other step. First off, the visuals. When I think of Mortal Kombat, believe it or not, colorful is one of the first words that comes into my head. Whether it be the multicolored ninjas and outfits, the stages being bright red with lava and blood, or the Outworld purple. But MKX decided to go for a more realistic approach, where color just doesn't exist or is completely washed out so it doesn't stand out. It's like they Call of Duty-ified Mortal Kombat. This is especially apparent in the story mode. Yeah, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this mode really. It's essentially a bit of a retelling of MK4 with Shinnok and Quan Chi, but following our 4 new heroes. Jackie Briggs, the daughter of Jax, Takahashi Takeda, the son of Kenshi, Kung Jin, the younger cousin of Kung Lao, and the game's new main protagonist, Cassie Cage, the daughter of Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade. The Kombat Kids, as they've been hilariously dubbed, essentially take over the story for this game, and I don't really like it. Like, if you want to have a group of young new characters take over the series, I'm all for it, but when they're all related to the main cast of past games, it makes me rather have Kenshi and Jax here instead. At least if the new characters are built from the ground up, I might like them without the use of nostalgia. Like Cobra.
You know the Black Dragon.
Killed one. Cobra, I think.
Damn it! And if I'm being honest, that's all I really have to say about this game. I know I'm not alone when I say that Mortal Kombat X was a game that happened. I don't know, the story was just one of the biggest factors that were a major selling point in this new modern trilogy of games, and the story here just absolutely felt like filler. Apart from the main Johnny Cage arc, which yes, sure, if you want to consider this game the story for Johnny Cage, then I guess you'll be happy. The fighting itself, though, again, is fine, totally serviceable, and if you don't give a damn about the story, then yeah, Mortal Kombat X is a fantastic game. For me, though, I was just hoping for more. Hopefully the next and final game on this journey can end things on a high.
There are fates worse than death.
Mortal Kombat 11 was released on April 23rd, 2019. While I wasn't high on MKX at all, I remember hearing that this game would finally wrap up the story started back in MK 2011, so I was already on board. But when the game dropped its trailer and I heard, I was even more hyped. How come it has taken everyone behind Mortal Kombat, be it Midway or NetherRealm Studios, so long to use the Techno Syndrome song from the movie? It's still so good. From a purely visual standpoint, the game is a big step up. Not just graphically because, yeah, obviously each game is going to look technically better than the last, but I'm speaking more from the standpoint of actual color returning to Mortal Kombat. Yeah, gone are the depressing, washed out, nothing visuals of MKX. Here, all the characters now pop and stand out, once again feeling unique. Some of the faces look kinda weird. The first that comes to mind is Sonya, now having her face modeled to look like Ronda Rousey, considering Ronda Rousey now voices Sonya.
General Blade? Dad would be proud.
Ronda's apparently a big Mortal Kombat fan, which I can totally believe, but her performance as Sonya...
How the hell do I ever sleep with that guy? Who's your father? I can't believe I just said that.
Yeah, it's not what you'd want. Along with the obviously upgraded visuals comes the gameplay. Again, Mortal Kombat in this modern generation has always felt incredibly fluid and fun, easy to pick up and hard to master, a sign of a well put together fighting game. The game feels faster, which is a plus. Every hit feels quick and impactful. The sound design is really good in this game. It feels like I'm actually slapping meat, which sounds inappropriate, I'm sorry. Every new Mortal Kombat entry, I think to myself, there's no way this game can look more realistic. And each time I get a swift kick in the jaw for assuming that. MK11's character models look the most human, or yeah, human-ish in some cases, that the series has ever looked. I mean, I'm starting to feel bad for absolutely beating the bejesus out of these guys and girls. The Crypt also makes a return in the form of this third-person adventure. You travel around this massive map, which turns out to be Shang Tsung's island. You can swing around a hammer for attacks and use special abilities, and it once again just has the player begging for a Shaolin Monks action-adventure spin-off. The Crypt sometimes feels like a new game in and of itself with its puzzles, traveling, action, and power-ups. Now, as fun as the game was obviously going to be from a fighting game standpoint, I'd be lying if I said the biggest thing I was looking forward to was seeing where the story would go and hopefully end. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. Basically, Mortal Kombat 11 introduces a new main villain named Kronika. She's this divine titan that basically has the ability to rewind time and write it as she sees fit. Seems a little broken, but okay. Right at the beginning of the story, we see an invasion on Outworld led by Sonya and Cassie. It's pretty intense and actually ends with Sonya dying.
I love you, Cass.
Yeah, maybe this is why we don't hire Ronda Rousey as a main character. Raiden has also become corrupted and evil, similar to how he was in Deception and Armageddon. So we're essentially only left with Johnny and Cassie Cage as our main protagonists. Unfortunately, this is where the story gets a little lame in my eyes, because Kronika uses her powers to bring back almost every character from the past, from and/or a different dimension, to the present. Meaning we get younger versions of Johnny Cage and Sonya who don't like each other, Shao Kahn, Liu Kang, Kung Lao, Raiden, Jax, fucking Cobra! Okay, not Cobra, but they might as well have. So yeah, the story once again might as well be another soft reset. It's like the team didn't know where to go after killing off the main characters or making them evil. So they bring back past versions of this current timeline to fix everything. It's a little disappointing. Because yes, while I love Liu Kang, this isn't the Liu Kang whose story we've been following since 2011. It's a totally new Liu Kang. The nostalgia is gone. Seeing cocky Johnny Cage isn't cute because we've already seen this in MK9 and watched him develop into a responsible hero over the years. I guess the charm is supposed to come from seeing our current wiser characters interact with their younger selves. I get that. But introducing this big time travel and dimension hopping element of the game really just comes off as laziness. Because now you could just solve every problem with, hey, why don't we just go back in time? Like, I get it's Mortal Kombat and death never truly means a character will be gone forever, but anything would have been better than time travel. I don't really have much else to talk about with the story apart from the end, so spoilers ahead. Raiden and Liu Kang get into a fight again, even getting glimpses of other dimensions where the two fought, looking like these two were destined to duke it out no matter what dimension they're from. Even getting glimpses of the two fighting at Armageddon. Raiden though finally comes to his senses and actually does something, stopping their needless fighting to instead work together. What a concept. Raiden eventually merges with Liu Kang to create Fire God Liu Kang. That's pretty badass. There's a massive war between the good guys' army and the bad guys' army, and it's pretty cool. Pretty fun seeing everyone fight in a war that's not Armageddon where everyone dies. Eventually, Fire God Liu Kang takes on the bald baby lady. They fight and Liu Kang, of course, kills her. Glad to see it. Unfortunately though, before their battle, Kronika rewound time and brought everyone back to the Stone Ages. However, Liu Kang, alongside a now human Raiden, will work together for the rest of Raiden's human life to create a more peaceful world for everyone. Aww. Now, there was a DLC that I never got around to playing. All I do know is that it follows Fujin, Nightwolf, and Shang Tsung needing to time travel through the events of MK11 from a different perspective to get Kronika's crown back, which Liu Kang destroyed in their battle and will need to properly use the hourglass to rewrite history. Now, the best part of this DLC in my eyes is the return of Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa, who portrayed Shang Tsung in the Mortal Kombat movie. An unironically fantastic movie with some of the best scenes in any movie ever, most of which obviously involve Tagawa.
Your brother's soul is mine.
He does such a kick-ass job. Seeing his likeness and that devious voice come out of the character's mouth just feels right. It's like he was born to play Shang Tsung.
I'll let you live to serve me in my new era. Or would you prefer to be wiped from history?
The story comes to an end in the same exact way it started, with Liu Kang battling Shang Tsung for the future of the realms. After Liu Kang wins the fight, Liu Kang travels back, all the way back, to the great Kung Lao and before the first Mortal Kombat. Having the door be open to a prequel of sorts, but who knows? All in all, the story mode was a bit of a mess in my opinion, but I'm such a massive fanboy, I can honestly look over most of its flaws and focus on the fun. I don't care. My favorite piece of DLC though comes in the form of Johnny Cage, Sonya, and Raiden in their movie forms.
Then this fight is now personal.
Including the returns of Lyndon Ashby, Bridget Wilson, and Christopher Lambert, respectfully.
It is exhausting being so perfect.
This is the best thing ever! I know it's pure nostalgia, but I don't care. Seeing the movie get any kind of love will always warm my heart. And thank God we have Bridget Wilson being able to replace Ronda Rousey. No offense, please don't beat me up.
What are you doing to protect Earthrealm?
Everything in my power, Sonya Blade.
How about protecting us from you?
Looking back, I had a great time with Mortal Kombat 11. I had a great time with mostly every Mortal Kombat game ever. It's why I made this unnecessarily long-ass video. While I have you though, let's now rank every Mortal Kombat game. Yeah, didn't expect that, did you? A retrospective and a ranking? Sure, why the hell not? Starting at number 17, Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, obviously. Number 16, Mortal Kombat Special Forces. The Mortal Kombat Game Boy games, all of them, I don't care if that's cheating. Mortal Kombat Unchained, simply for being a port with a new name, seemingly trying to deceive the players. Oh no, that's genius actually. Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition. Mortal Kombat X. Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. The OG first Mortal Kombat, please don't yell at me. Mortal Kombat 3/Trilogy. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. Mortal Kombat Armageddon. Mortal Kombat 11. Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat 4 in Gold, Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, Mortal Kombat 2011, and my number one favorite Mortal Kombat game, Mortal Kombat Deception. Well, gosh darn, we actually did it. My personal retrospective in history with Mortal Kombat. I've been a fan since I first laid eyes on the series. Mortal Kombat is one of the few series I'm always going to keep my eyes on and hold for a special place in my heart. Before it gets ripped out fatality style. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're not a Mortal Kombat fan, I hope I was at least able to pique your interest in checking the series out. That's about it. See you next time around.